Hello everyone, this is Radha Krishna. In this video we are going to discuss on the creation of an application for password validation. In general, we will be creating our accounts in many websites like Facebook, Gmail, where we are asked to create user IDs and passwords and asked to impose conditions on passwords like special characteristics, the number of uppercase letters, etc. Similarly, in our program, we need to create an application where we need to input the password during the runtime of an application, and when we click the check password button, we need to validate the requirements of the passwords that need to be met, and then we need to display a message whether the entered password is valid or not. A valid password must meet following requirements, that is, it must be at least 8 characters long, it must contain at least one uppercase letter, it must contain at least one lowercase letter, and it must contain at least one numeric digit. So when we click the check password button, we need to validate all these conditions and we need to display a message whether the entered password is valid or not. To build this application, we need to write a script in the check password buttons event handler, and we need to validate all the conditions, and then we need to display a message whether the entered password is valid or not. So by clicking the check password button, we go to the event handler of the check password button. So this is the check password button event handler. The first condition we need to meet is the password must contain minimum number of 8 characters or more. For this, I am going to create a variable constant integer variable min_len, and I am going to assign 8 to it to hold the minimum requirement characters. Similarly, I am creating a variable string password to hold the value entered in the input text label, that is password textbox.text. Now I am gonna check the length conditions first, that is the password dot length must be greater than or equal to 8. Let's assume that this is the only condition we need to check for the password to be valid. Then if the password length is greater than 8, then the message box should display that the password is valid, else we need to display that the password is invalid or password doesn't meet minimum requirements. The next is we need to validate whether the password has minimum number of one uppercase letter. So we do this check by having a new method private which returns the integer, that is num uppercase, which takes the input parameter as string. So in this method we are inputting the password as an input parameter, and we are returning the count of number of uppercase letters in the password. Here I am declaring the variable int count upper. I am setting it to 0 to hold the count of uppercase letters. Using for each loop, I am looping in password where I am checking the condition if char dot is upper I. If the character is of uppercase, then I am incrementing the count. Then at the end I am returning the count. Similarly, I am creating a new method num lowercase which takes string as an input parameter. This method counts the number of lowercase letters in the password and then returns the count to the calling method. Again, using the for each loop, I'm gonna loop the password. Then again I'm checking the condition if cat dot is lower of right. Then in this case I am gonna increment the count. Then again at the end I am returning the count. So this completes the validation of lowercase letters in the password. Similarly, I am gonna create num digit method to check the digits in the password. Again I am using the for each loop. If the char is of digit, then I am incrementing the count. Again at the end I am returning the count for the digit. So now I'm gonna impose the additional 3 conditions for the password here. Num digit of password should be greater than or equal to 1. Similarly, number lowercase of password should be greater than or equal to 1, and number uppercase of password should be greater than or equal to 1. So now I have all the 4 conditions, that is the password length minimum should be 8, and the number of digits in the password should be greater than or equal to 1, and the number of lowercase letters should be greater than or equal to 1, and the number of uppercase letters should be greater than or equal to 1. So if all these conditions are met, then the password is valid. In other conditions, the password does not meet minimum requirement. So when I execute the application, when I enter the less number of characters, it shows that the password does not meet all the requirements. But when I enter the password such that it meets all the requirements, then it shows as a valid password. So this is the demonstration of development of an application for password validation. Thank you.